I've been building houses for over 2 decades, and I've spent a lot of time researching the materials, figuring out what makes sense, what's cost effective, what's healthy, and what will last a long time. This week, I was really surprised. Want to know more? Let's get into it. I recently started training for my LFA, or my Living Future Associate certification by the Living Future Institute. Now, the LFA is all about understanding the Living Building Challenge. And Living Building Challenge is really the most stringent and demanding certification for any building in the world. And what it really requires is that those buildings are beneficial to the environment, beneficial to the people who live in the environment. Do not pollute, do not use contaminated materials or toxic materials, are not placed in forest or essential habitat. Now, as part of my training for this, there's a specific section called the materials pedal. And the materials pedal is all about not using toxic materials. And specifically, a part of that materials pedal is the red list. And the red list is a list of 20 chemical families that you're not allowed to use at all in any Living Building Challenge certified building. Now, we're all about building for human health, and we're about building for environmental health. So we adopted this section of the Living Building Challenge for all of our projects to reduce and eliminate the use of all toxic materials in our projects. So we started looking at materials, and one of the things that I found was that something like flashing is the metal that you use to divert water away from the outside of your house. You see it on roofs, you see it in the big box stores, and it has all different kinds of shapes, and it's made out of something called galvanized sheet metal. And we've been using this forever and ever because it stops water from coming into your house, like here at the transition between a brick wall and the roof. And you can see that because it diverts the water out, because it can handle the sun, and because it lasts a long time, it's an essential element of any long-term building project. And what we found when we looked at it is that you can buy it at any box store, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a healthy material. So we asked one of our manufacturers. We're a big proponent of using local building manufacturers and fabricators, and one of our local manufacturers gave us this bulk material MSDS, so this manufacturer safety data sheet. This MSDS tells you the chemicals that are in every component that you buy of this material. And what we asked was, hey, give us the MSDS on this flashing that we asked you to make. And they gave us this MSDS. And what we found in this material is it's galvanized sheet metal, standard material that we always use, but we found that it contains lead. Now, lead is a toxic material. Lead is highly toxic heavy metal. It has a cumulative hazard, meaning it builds up in the environment, builds up in your body, and it's a systemic poison. For those of you who are as old as I am, you'll know that unborn kids, and as well as young kids, suffer from neurological toxicity, therefore mental retardation, lots and lots of bad stuff from chronic exposure to lead or for systemic exposure to lead. Interestingly, you can also get lead poisoning from chewing tobacco, from cigarettes, even from some food and makeup. Now, lead is already bad enough, but what we also found out was that this flashing can have what's called hexavalent chromium. And hexavalent chromium is a toxic chemical that is renowned for a very prominent reason. The movie Erin Brockovich, about a woman who became the champion of the people in this town in Central Valley, California, who were exposed to and had their groundwater contaminated by hexavalent chromium from PG&E, or Pacific Gas and Electric, the main utility for Northern California. And these people suffered grievous harm. Many of them had cancers, had all kinds of horrible diseases that required and really devastated their lives. And Erin Brockovich was their champion. And it ended up resulting in a $380 million settlement against PG&E. We found out that this material, or this chemical, could be on materials we were using. That was pretty disastrous to us, honestly. So I asked the manufacturer, if she could find another source of this galvanized sheet metal that didn't contain lead and didn't contain hexavalent chromium. And she found something pretty quickly. So another manufacturer had realized the error of including lead and hexavalent chromium in their products and decided to make a formulation that didn't. And we see that when we look at the MSTS, we see no lead in this. And we look at all the toxicities, and it's fairly non-toxic for anything else. In fact, the only thing is nickel, and that's by California Prop 65. And so really, this is a much higher level of material. We look at the documentation lower down, and they say that their material, this coating and this material is compliant with Living Building Challenge, that it is not going to contain all these toxic chemicals like lead and cadmium and mercury and chromium-6. And that was really important to us because now we're using a material that is not toxifying our houses, that's not a chemical component that could result in people getting sick. And we started looking more and more at the materials that we were using and at the materials all through our jobs and every material. And we, in fact, now have somebody in our organization that's totally dedicated to looking at every material we use as a builder and making sure that it doesn't have any of these red list compounds. That's super important to us because we care about the life and safety of our clients, of our workers, of our collaborators, of our architects, and anybody who lives in that house or goes to that house. That's super important. By avoiding these red list chemicals, and you can see them here on this list, there's a lot of chemicals. In fact, it's 20 chemical categories, but it actually composes over 11,000 specific chemicals. That's a lot of chemicals. And what we find is that some manufacturers are freely willing to declare all of their chemical components that go into their products. And in fact, the Living Future Institute has a specific label called Declare that manufacturers can submit their materials to and get cleared for all the components. So they basically say, here's all of the materials that are in our product. And then they'll say, okay, that gives you kind of that transparency label, that declare label. And then you can actually test it against the red list chemicals, verifying that their materials and their the products are not toxic to you. So we really like this idea. We're going to start adopting this in our company because it protects our workers and everybody around our projects. If you're interested in learning more about the Living Future Challenge or the Living Future Institute, see the address below. But if you're interested in learning more about Earthbound Homes, about building a better way, building projects, or following our projects, please hit subscribe as we show you how to build a better way.